Thanks very much, Janet. It's great to be in this building, New York Times. It's great to be with librarians. I've been missing them for some time. But let me just say a few words about the importance of this event. Libraries have made all of us, as we made the libraries. I am the product of the library. Those of you who read my autobiography, in Tabriz, Iran, in an Armenian diocesan library, I read most of the books that opened my mind to the future, to Europe, to Russia, to America, Uncle Tom's Cabin, Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, on and on and on. Libraries are emancipatory organizations. They extend your imagination. They give you literacy. They satisfy quest for thirst and curiosity. They educate you. Libraries are a place where nobody can graduate because there's no such thing as graduation, because there's no such thing as ending learning. It's a perpetual institution in which everyone is equal and no one knows who does not know what is known, because everybody has to keep quiet and cannot advertise. Furthermore, as my dear friend Janet mentioned, I'm proud to have served for some 9 years as president of the New York Public Library. It's the most democratic institution, and I'm glad their great leader now, Paul Leclerc, who's here, is heading that organization, because libraries are a symbol of civic pride, civic monument to democracy, equity, equality, and to learning. Libraries are also repositories of humanity's knowledge. They discriminate between accomplishment. They don't discriminate between good and evil, devil and God, because everything that we've done, everything we have aspired, everything we have succeeded, everything we have failed, all is recorded in the library. Libraries are the most tolerant institutions because they have to give mankind the memory of all our deeds. They're diaries of humanity in many ways. They're diaries of our society, with its aspirations, its follies, its accomplishments. Last but not least, libraries are here as testimony to humanity's follies, but humanity's accomplishments, because libraries and librarians' role should not be underestimated. I always tell politicians, remember, no earthly organization gives you mortality. Churches don't, because you bury one on the top of the other. Buildings don't, because they are replaced. There's no Pan Am building, MetLife building. All of these buildings disappear. Libraries don't. If you want immortality, there are two institutions, maybe three, that can give you immortality. One is the library, the other is museums, and occasionally universities, unless they also become Louisiana cemeteries when you bury one on the top of the other, namely you make each building change every 50 years. My dear friend Leon Levy, who was a great collector and great investor, established a wing at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And the joke was that he asked Philip Montebello, the distinguished leader of Metropolitan Museum, how long will this wing that I established last? He said, in perpetuity. And he said, Philip, how long is perpetuity nowadays? And Philip said 50 years. He said, make it 75. Make it 75 and we have a deal. Well, nobody can do that about libraries, because what's written, what is there is for perpetuity. And the other thing, I took great pride at the New York Public Library, that it was nobody's business what you read. Reading was a private act. Reading was extension of our constitutional right of privacy, non-invasion. And that's one of the reasons when FBI came years ago, 1980s, that to ask us, librarians have to report anybody reading suspicious material. Well, what was suspicious material? Maybe Soviet spies and Chinese spies and others will come to the library and go to science division and read periodicals and take notes. Well, my answer was, my God, if they are dumb enough to send somebody all the way here when they can subscribe to these magazines, which are already there, there's something wrong with them. And besides, we had a rule at the New York Public Library that for some 90 years, whoever had checked anything, their files are not available to anyone. And besides, I told the FBI, Mr. Fox, the late FBI leader in New York, look at me, I said, if I came from the door, you did not know me, at that time I had plenty of hair, wouldn't you think I'm suspicious? He said, yes. Well, I rest my case, I said. You want librarians to report to me. Anyway, I'm mentioning this because privacy at the library's role for giving earthly immortality is very important for people to realize, especially politicians, famous authors and artists, educators and others. Last place that I wanted to mention about the role of the library is that for the first time in world history, let me repeat again, for the first time in world history, that's a big statement. Every individual has his own, her own Library of Alexandria. You have access to entire corpus of human knowledge. So therefore, we have no excuse not to learn, not to be in awe with all the accomplishments of humanity. Until now, the libraries, if you were not rich, you could not afford. But now, thanks to internet, thanks to digitalization of everything, all of you can have access to that. That's what the library is. Library is universal book of humanity's accomplishments. And then let me say a few words about you, the librarians. They're wonderful people, but unfortunately limited in the sense, in their devotion to the library, that even if there are no funds, they still go, they still provide service. They're most underappreciated individuals, along with some of our teachers in public high schools and public schools, because librarians, in my book, there are three most important organizations and institutions in the country in terms of their importance, are teachers who educate the next generation of our society, then librarians who open the doors to knowledge, and then journalists who keep honesty, facts, separating fact and opinion in order to inform the public. So you, in my book, are one of the great heroes who serve our public. I'm not saying today because you're here, you're being honored. I've said this many times. But you also have the burden to be more educated, more knowledgeable. You're the ones like Jacobson of Berkeley, the great linguist, who would be able to say, yes, you have access to internet, but do you know that second edition of Malraux's Men's Fate has 8 lines that would be of interest to you as a writer? Do you know that prologue and all of this will have relevance in Jean-Paul Sartre? Do you know that Karl Marx's poetry is available in another edition and all of that? If you don't have that knowledge, you'll be useless in many ways because anybody can find information. But you're not about information, you're about knowledge, about tradition, about learning, about process, as well as anything. So the greatest burden now is not on the individual to learn, but also in yourselves as librarians. You have to be more educated about the content, more about technology, because everything has come and gone. Libraries have stayed here. When the film came, they said libraries are finished. When the record came, libraries are finished. Video came, libraries are finished. Microscope came, they did not say that, but at the same time, when it came to the thing of internet, they said libraries are finished. Libraries are not finished because there's one place where you can have reverence for learning and reading and spending time with yourself. That's very important. Libraries are not about retrieving information. They're not centers of information. They're centers of learning.